having had it or have it now, and just hearing all of their experiences with it.
Yes.
Wild.
My sister and her fiance live in Astoria, and both them and their roommate, they think they had it. They were able to, they recovered, but it was pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we drove up to my folks in Ohio, and we're still in Ohio. I think we're gonna sort of sit it out here.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's good.
Yeah. Hi, Nathan. I hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, I can hear
you. Wow. Are you in New York as well?
No, I'm upstate and in our house.
Nice.
Pretty much in trying to stay at home constantly.
Yes.
I went to Ohio too after I left Kentucky and visited my sister for a minute.
Oh,
and
wow.
We were talking about staying home and how she wasn't going to go to church anymore. It was going to be remote. That next day, my cousin was at church in West Virginia, and there was a COVID outbreak.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Is your cousin okay? Did they catch it?
My cousin's okay. She was quarantined for 3 weeks. But basically, a couple of the older people in the church died.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. We heard this really sad story that there was a big choir in Washington that was like, we're going to meet anyways. And they were like all careful about being 6 feet apart from each other and stuff. But like a huge percentage of the group ended up getting it. And they all got quarantined, and really sad. Man, it's so crazy how quickly it happened. So like my head's kind of reeling about it.
Yeah, it really is. And it's also so crazy how Kentucky was so quick to shut everything down, quicker than most places.
Yes.
I feel like we were kind of lucky. I mean, in a lot of ways, not lucky, but also very lucky to have that leadership there.
I agree.
The city of Louisville, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ohio's been pretty good about it too, which has been nice. The governor's been really on top of things. Yeah, it is crazy. It was are we so what's going Emily, will you tell me what's happening right now? Or they're like
I put up a sign that says we're just chatting. Talkback will start when we're all here. Robert's having trouble joining.
So is Jeff Augustine.
Are there folks?
Okay, I texted Jeff.
Are there people watching, or are we just hanging out? I'm cool with either, actually.
They are watching, but you can't. Right now, I put up a sign.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Facebook.
I think Amy Wagner might be here. Hi, Amy.
Hello, Amy.
Julia Rufo. Hi.
We see you on the attendees, but we don't see you here. Hi.
Oh, hi.
I'm happy to be thinking about both of those women.
Oh, I see.
Is there I see there's a
Okay, Robert is connecting.
Yay.
Oh, I see. Yes.
And I thought
this is okay. We're building suspense. We're building an audience for the talkback.
Yes.
I'm here.
Hi.
Hey, Robert.
Wait, I don't see Robert.
Hey, wait a minute.
Wow.
You don't see me.
I can see you.
Me and Alan can see each other, but I can't.
I can see Robert now.
I can see you, Robert.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, Robert.
Welcome. I see Jeff.
There's Jeff. Yes.
Jeff has
okay, good.
Yeah, Jeff, you're muted. I mean, nothing about you is muted other than your microphone.
There he is. Yes.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello.
Okay, so everyone, I'm going to take myself out because I am hearing the conversation repeated here in Facebook Live. So I'll be communicating over chat.
How do I get to see everybody, Emily? Because I don't.
If you could mute yourself when you're not speaking. There's also 2 views. So if you look up at the top right corner, you may be able to switch to gallery view so you could see everybody at once, or speaker view where you see people individually. And if you need anything, you can chat with me in the chat function. Robert, if you'll start with some questions and an introduction, and then I'll take questions from both Facebook Live and Zoom.
This is the closest I've ever come to being famous.
All right, I'm ready.
Oh my.
So we're on. Hey, everybody. I'm
Hey,
Robert Barry Fleming, and I'm the Executive Artistic Director at Actors Theater of Louisville, and I've got this incredibly distinguished panel that I'm thrilled to introduce you to. We're going to do the Brady Bunch, and we're going to work all the way around the circle here. To my right, maybe to your left, we have Sean Bankson. Say hey, Sean. That's beautiful.
Hello.
Who did the original compositions and music for this project. Our esteemed playwright, Jeff Augustin, just under him, I think in the Cindy Brady window. We've got right below me, the magnificent, wonderful actor who plays John, Nathan Hinton.
Hi, Facebook.
Right next to him, his wonderful and spectacular son, our protagonist, or arguably our protagonist of this wonderful play, Alan Washington, who plays Jonah.
Hello.
And then we've got a double special pleasure right to my left here, the esteemed director, as well as our esteemed dramaturg on this project, Josh Brody and Sarah Lunny.
Hello.
Hi.
So I am so thrilled to have all of you here. I'm probably far more sunny than I actually am feeling, because this play moves me and inspires me and to the very core. And I just got to watch it again, which is my umpteenth time of watching this beautiful production, Where the Mountain Meets the Sea. And I just want to throw a question to each of you and see what you can share with us. Jeff, can you just let us know, is this as autobiographical as it seems? And how did this all come together? And you are actually still muted, so we're gonna.
There you go. The play is sort of autobiographical. It sort of started with the idea that the negative of it started with the fact that I live in LA and I don't drive. My dad has worked at the Miami International Airport pretty much his entire life, but doesn't like to fly. And I was home for the holidays, which is, I actually, like Jonah, only go home now for like Christmas and New Year's because my mom's birthday is New Year's. And my dad asked to see photos of me. And I started thinking about the ways in which I live my life as if my parents' lives never actually exist. Like they only live as my parents in my mind, and in my mind they just wait by the phone waiting for me to call them. And I also started realizing that they imagine the lives for me, a life for me that I may or may not be living. And so the play kind of started from there. And then my love for like folk music. And then you guys commissioned me, and then, yeah, that's where I started from.
That's thrilling. Is that the fragmented truth and some piece of that thing that you talk about in terms of memory as is and memory as we wished it to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like, there's just ways that when I did pull up a photo of me at a wedding for my father, and the way he lit up, and the way I was like, oh, you've never really seen me as an adult in the world surrounded by friends. And I don't know, there's a way that there are things about my relationship with my father that I think there are memories that I might have created rather than actually existed, and probably vice versa.
Well, it's so elegantly rendered and interpreted. And I just want to hear from Josh and Sarah. You work so cohesively and comprehensively in realizing this project. Can you talk a little bit about from workshop to workshop to actual production, kind of how this came together and how you chose the collaborators that you did. We had some spectacular design with what Meredith and Scott and Matt and Dominique contributed. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how it came to be?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about like sort of the team and how they got assembled, and maybe let Sarah talk about the evolution through sort of workshopping and other phases. It's funny because I think those of us on the screen, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but like I certainly sort of feel like we made this little family while we were there together, which often I think is what the theater feels like, but definitely felt this way. But that I think was true in the assembling of the team in different ways. I mean, so Jeff is actually, Sarah and I are married, and Jeff is the one who introduced us and spoke at our wedding in real life. So Sarah and Jeff have known each other since college. Jeff and I have known each other since grad school. We're like a little family. Meredith, our scenic designer, I have known since I was in high school, believe it or not, and then reconnected with through a friend of Sarah's. Scott and I worked together before. Dominique went to graduate school with Jeff and I. We've known her forever. And Matt Hubbs, of course, like is part of the Louisville family from way back when at ATL, and has worked with the Banksons numerous times. So like this sort of the bringing together this creative team meant, I think, that from the very first time we all got in workshop, although I have to tell a very quick funny story about this. When we first met Sean and Abigail, when Jeff and I first met Sean and Abigail over Skype, funnily enough, back when people did meet in person, but we weren't able to. And we had a moment where Jeff and I were like, we went into the call thinking, oh my God, we're such big fans of theirs. We hope they like us. And then Sean and Abigail were on the other side of that being like, oh my God, we love this play. We hope they like us. And then we sort of had a moment of like, we interviewed each other, basically having a sort of job interview type thing. And then there got to be a moment in the call where we were all like, let's just do it. Let's just make this thing together. Which I think then is how we went about making it, like really collaboratively as a team.
Beautiful.
Yeah. You know, and I actually joined the team formally probably last of anyone, although I feel like I've been with the project for years because of my long friendship with Jeff and my cohabitation with Josh. You know, but you've been with the play for many years as a creative collaborator of Jeff's, whereas I, until this past fall, was more a fan and sort of loving audience to its development. And then I came on board as the dramaturg more formally in the fall. And I would say, you know, I'm sure we'll get into this more in the scope of the conversation, but in a very broad strokes way, I think the big questions that we entered workshop with were how might music interact with Jeff's writing, which consisted all of monologues for these men, and some propositions from Jeff about where he thought music might happen. But the Banksons became really invaluable dramaturgical collaborators in terms of, you know, not only creating this beautiful music, but also helping us understand how we might think about what the relationship is between the performers and the musicians on stage. And then also what the liveness of it meant in some way, given that the play consists of these long, very private monologues for each of these men. What did it mean to do that live together in community with an audience, and how could we bring it to life in a way that honored that without over complicating it?
That's beautiful, and a beautiful transition to ask you, Sean, from Turn Me Around to Remember Me, all of these just beautiful songs that speak so eloquently to kind of what's happening inside the human heart on this journey. Can you talk to us about how you and Abigail kind of found yourselves in the piece, and how you found a way to realize what was another text within the text? And we're going to unmute you.
There I am. Hello. No, it was just we got the play and we're just so moved by it, and it was and one of the challenges was actually how complete and unto itself it was, And so I think one of the journeys was finding like what can the music hold for the text, you know, and but it's always a strange but exciting process writing like this sort of music for a play, where it's like, you know, it's not a musical theater piece. So there's not like, well, the characters need to say this, and that to each other. It's just more kind of amorphous, like subterranean thing of like, how can we find something that feels like, I don't know, like they're like resonating each other or something, you know? And so we started just by, you know, just read the play a bunch, and then just sort of wrote songs in response to the play, you know, some of which we thought maybe could live here or live there, and some of which we had no idea where it might go, and sort of just made like a concept album in response to the work. And then we sent that to Josh and Jeff. And then it's been just a process of figuring out which pieces do live together. And the other, the sort of guiding principle that we ended up having for ourselves is like trying to write songs where, you know, that thing where like you're going through something in your life and you just got the radio on and a song comes on and it feels like eerily exact to your situation, you know. It's just like whoever's song, but in that moment it feels like it's singing exactly to you. And so that's really what we tried to do with the music. And it's something with music like this and work like this, a lot of it you can't plan out so much ahead of time. You just have to try it and feel how it goes. And so we had a rough arc of what it would be before we came into Louisville, but I would say it wasn't until we're in Louisville that we really knew just what we wanted the music to do in this draft.
It's just so beautifully realized. And both Nathan and Alan, for those of you who are familiar with or not familiar with their work, these are two masters of their craft, and really such. I wanted to have an opportunity to hear from both of you what this process was like, embodying these extraordinary men who had lives that seemed so common in the sense of finding love, taking a journey, being born, seeing loved ones pass, and going through all the rites of passage, and yet they were so specific and so beautifully rendered in such a really simple way. Can you just talk to us how using this language and what it was like to build these characters from the text that you were given, both spoken and sung?
Sure. This is Nathan. The process was really nourished along and really supported. At least I felt so. And for me, it really was about just going on a journey of this specific man from Haiti that I really related to just generally at first because of the whole being a student of the diaspora. You know, I felt that in my journey as an African American, we all peoples really, you know, there's a sense of we are all diasporic people, if we're from Europe or Asia or Africa. There was this center of place that was tested under pressure by some stress, and then the people kind of pushed out from that place and went around the world. So when I met this play, I felt that this guy was a man who I didn't know, but that I knew completely. Because as a Black boy growing up in West Virginia, I really related to folk music. As a matter of fact, one of the first songs that I remember going to the library and listening to when they used to have where you could only listen to music in the library because you didn't really have it at home, was a song by Alison Krauss, who's a country western singer. It was called I've Got That Old Feeling. And I was like, what is this? You know, she was singing about this guy in country music. And for me, this play met me in that place where I was as a kid, a Black kid, going into the library and coming in touch with bluegrass. And so Jean, as a Black Haitian man who becomes a Haitian American man, who has a home with him and then brings it to the US with him, I found it to be a story that I was really, really intrigued in learning and knowing. And I'm so so the better for having kind of followed this story with him. So I'm just really thankful that I got to be so lucky. I'm thankful to you and everybody else, and especially to Alan and the Banksons, my partners on stage, just to be able to bring it all together and to put it on stage for one day. You know, so.
How about for you, Alan?
Yes, ditto to everything that Nathan said. And yeah, I was just talking to someone from, I think from Queer Kentucky actually, yesterday about the play, and we were both saying like, yeah, I feel like most gay men have like something going on between them and their father. And I for sure have like a very interesting relationship with my dad, and I feel like Jonah obviously does as well. So it's all like in the play. All I had to do was learn the words, which was a lot, but just to learn the words and say the words, and all I had to do really was trust that me going on this journey was enough. It really does the work for you, to be honest. In learning it, you're learning so much about the character because it's all on the page, and there's so much. So it was just a matter of reading it over and over again, and I already felt so close to this character that it felt more of the work was in trying to do less than really like trying to perform and bring him to life. I found that he was already there.
Wow. Do any of you have a favorite song from the play?
My favorite is I Was Too Late.
Which version?
The earliest version, after my first speech. When I'm just sitting in the stool.
Everything to Me is that song.
Yeah, everything to me. Yes.
New play development, people. New play development.
Exactly.
Also, I should explain that we all have like shorthand names for the songs that aren't what their name. Like we call it the bop, even though
right,
whatever that song is called.
But speaking about like what Sean was saying about it's a song that would come on the radio, and it's eerily exactly what you're going through. There's a line in that song that Abigail says, I wasn't the kind of boy you wanted at all. And every night I would hear that line, I would just be like, oh God, I've got to, keep it together, Alan.
Well, the play is so layered, and it's so this lyrical meditation that is so elegant and beautiful, and then also so radical in the specificity of the worlds that are created and the things that were explored. Can you talk a little bit about the juxtaposition of how that was realized? Because it's just ultimately so human, and yet, I think of the line, I'm trying to keep myself open, and thinking of how many people may have really needed to be in that space in Kentucky as they were having this very queer, very Black, very journey about desire and life and death and love. How beautiful and complicated that must have been for so many, and how rich and wonderful, I know it was for those of us who got to have a moment with it, and the feedback that we've gotten about the broadcast, of course, while not a live performance, has been extraordinary. Can you all just kind of talk about just what this experience has been like with the play, and then in this very strange iteration of we're expecting to have a long run, and then it's one performance and a filming, and then a memory.
I would say like just one, and this is just like, I don't know if this actually speaks to the bigger sort of beautifully articulated question you had, Robert, but to sort of grab onto the line in that song, right, that we call the waltz, but I guess Sean is called Oh My Love, that song makes me cry every time in sort of like any context that I hear it. And part of it is like the beautiful writing in the song, it's Abigail's performance of the song. But there's a specific thing, and heck, if anyone's watching this and you want to watch it again, go watch it again. There's a specific thing about the way that Sean and Abigail perform that moment in the play for Alan and Nathan. And it's a moment that always feels to me, both in the rehearsing it and in the watching, that two things are happening at once. That there is the characters in their own timelines hearing this song, which is a pivotal moment for both of them. Jean on his journey to being a father, Jonah on his journey towards understanding his father and understanding and releasing himself and working to hold himself open. And also, it is a moment of Nathan and Alan being present with Sean and Abigail, all like holding space and trying to hold each other open and be brave in this naked room, right, where there's no scenery really, and we're just going to be here, be with each other and be okay with that. And the song rings out to me in that way, in the same way that the play does. And why I've been crying, one of the reasons I've been crying so much in the last month, is that it feels to me like a hard and noble pursuit in this moment in the world is to just, I'm trying to hold myself open. It's just to try to sort of be in this moment, and to try to sort of like, to move through that.
Something I felt that I discovered about the play, I guess I had heard it out loud before in an earlier incarnation, but we all got together in New York in the fall with the Banksons for the first time for a script workshop. And anytime we read the play or part of the play, and anytime you guys played a song, I wept. And I felt both of those things that you have named, Robert, both so moved by the specificity of Jeff's writing and the sense of rich history of each of these characters, and the feeling of privileged access that we get to know both of these men who loved each other so much, but missed a lot of opportunities to connect. But that the play is designed in a way that lets us know both of their interior lives so richly. And for each of them, their story is so particular. And I think some of that comes from Jeff's own history and experience, and then also from places Jeff has actually traveled. Like a lot of the road trip are based on real places, which I think you can feel the truthfulness of that in the writing. At the same time, I think there's a kind of spaciousness in Jeff's writing and in the music, and then in the way that you all built it together, that allowed room for an audience to connect with their own histories of migration and of relationship with parents, that had little or nothing to do with the particular men whose stories we were following. And so when I was crying, I felt like, okay, well, today I'm crying for Jean, but I'm also crying because like we're about to have a baby, and this play is making me think about parenthood. And you, I remember, had a very extraordinary conversation with a man after our first and only public performance, who related it to his own history in a way that I thought was really
Robert,
amazing.
you and I were standing there talking to this man whose name I'm going to screw up, but it was either Howard or Harold, maybe. And he was a patron of the theater, and he was a white guy in his middle age, and he like sort of locked in and was talking about his experience that I believe his parents were refugees from the Holocaust, and that he had this like immediate hook in where, and I think, I was thinking just because of his age and the fact that he seemed like a dad, he was going to be relating to Jean, and it was sort of the opposite. And he was like, I was Jonah. I mean, that was me. That was my dad was the guy who had come here, and we never really could talk. And I was like,
and he said that he didn't have any pictures or recordings of his parents, and that he related to
this one line
to Jonah because of that.
And he had this one line that Jonah has, not their dialects. I don't have any recordings. My dad would just call until you picked up. This man was saying the same thing, that he had no recordings of his parents.
Yes, I believe that was Ron Rubin, and I recall the conversation. Thank you for sharing and reminding me of that. This whole journey, in our own family here, I recently lost my mother on March 27th. Sarah and Josh are just getting ready to have their first baby. And I think for so many of us, even though we may hold different social locations, both geographically, ethnically, racially, in terms of nationality, there is such a coming together about our common humanity through this story and all of these characters, and that it manages to do that and with such specificity, and yet it's so universal. Jeff, can you, I mean, this is something that's kind of a hallmark of your writing. You know, I was first introduced to your writing at the O'Neill many years ago, and each time I hear one of your plays, and it is as much a hearing as much as it is this beautiful visual metaphor that's constantly accompanying your language and the actual productions. But can you talk to us a little bit about what that's like for you to write through these seminal life moments, and how you manage to make something that is so specific, so universal simultaneously?
I'll try. I think part of my process in writing is I'm always intrigued by a couple of things. I think because my family immigrated from Haiti to Miami, so much of my childhood growing up was listening to stories about land and history and ancestors, and also within listening to those stories, uncovering parts of whoever's telling that story, whether it was my mom or my dad or an uncle and aunt, a sort of longing for something or a question they were asking. And part of when I write, I'm always interested in the human anxiety behind the thing. Why am I, part of my anxiety about my dad still alive, but part of the thing that I was starting to write about. And also during the time I started writing this play, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so part of the thing that was in my mind was, what are the questions I haven't asked him? And what are the things that I don't know about him? And so I'm always kind of interested in kind of our own personal human anxieties when I write. I'm interested in kind of our histories and how in our past and how we haven't how we're constantly moving through life trying to learn from them and run away from them or run towards them. And I think specificity, I think that's kind of where all this kind of starts for me. I don't know if that answered your question.
It absolutely does. It's beautifully stated. And for you, Sean and Nathan and Alan, you had the distinction of actually creating the composition, Sean, but then you also performed. And can the three of you talk about what it was like to go from sharing this story with an audience to actually sharing it and offering it only to those who were present to witness it, amongst the cast and the few people on the crew that filmed it? What was that journey like? And what was that whole experience like for the three of you?
For me, it was pretty nerve-wracking. It was like, needles going through my veins for the entire time of the filming, because we'd had that one preview and I felt like we'd grown and learned so much with people in the audience. So I felt completely like kind of torn from comfort when we were stopped prematurely by the emergency. So it was a shift transition. I love what happened when I actually got to see the video. But then when I had to come back home, it was also, I felt ripped from the play. And so I spent, I think I let go of Jean about 3 days ago. So I feel kind of normal now. I feel like Nathan. But that came around April 11th or 12th. Actually, the day, because our last show would have been the 12th. Sometime around Sunday, I was like, right. Feeling like I'm coming back to me. but I've been a little bit miserable because I've wanted to do those shows. I started doing the show in my basement when I first came back at night. And eventually I kind of let that go. And I think now I'm kind of back, but it took even more time than it usually does at the end of the show, because I think of the circumstances surrounding the closing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really hard. Because we were still very much in process as well. Yeah, like everyone was saying, we had one audience, and definitely for a play like this, they really, really are the last character in the play. I know we say that about every theater performance, and it's very true, and especially when you're talking to the audience, it is very, very true. So yeah, it felt like we sort of did one complete version of the play before we had to leave. And it's funny, I was looking up all these, I've been binging all the shows, and one show that I've been watching on Netflix is called Ozark. And I just started like looking up Laura Linney clips from all the ages. And she was just doing this play on Broadway that was a monologue play, like literally as we were doing this. And I had just found out about it when we got back. And one of the things she was saying about a monologue play is that you're constantly, like more than a lot of other plays, is you're constantly finding it, because you're still learning it, even when you get an audience, like that you're still going to be figuring out what the words are, and like things are going to be messy all the time. And so it really felt like we were being stripped of like really being able to find the play. So yeah, it was really heartbreaking, because I know all of us love the play so much, that it was pretty sad.
Just watched Laura Linney on an episode of Law and Order. I think it was right out of Juilliard. Thank you for that. Sean?
I also love Laura Linney.
We're all confirmed lovers. That's it. Laura Linney, you're our goddess.
It was really heartbreaking. It was, it was so sudden. It was like a funny thing too, where we had a show of ours that was licensed, that was being done in another country, and that show got stopped because of COVID. Like maybe like during our tech, like maybe so like a week before we did or something. And when that happened, I was like, oh wow, but it didn't occur to me that could happen here. It changed so quickly. And so when it did happen immediately, like I think I like rode through it a little bit on adrenaline, just like when something like really big and extreme happens, I think like my first response is just kind of marveling at the bigness of it. And then I did feel like I felt really grateful to you all for making the call that you did, and protecting us and the community. But like once the adrenaline wore off, I was just so sad. I was, from the creator side of it, I was really grateful that we had the video. So I'm so grateful that there's a record of it and something that we can share, because I do hope that the work will get to be reborn whenever this all, whenever life in whatever sense can resume. But it's been a lot to pick apart. And I agree that there was something like, I was extra, like Easter was really sad this year for every reason. And I do think it was like knowing that it was, for like all year, I'd been picturing that like Easter would also be our last day and how that would feel. And so it was extra sad. And I feel really grateful that some folks are still getting to see it. And I'm really proud of the work. And it was, but I absolutely agree that work of this kind, through the rehearsal process, you're a little bit doing it into a void, and storytelling really makes so little sense without a listener. And so I'm just, I pray for the future when we might get to be in a room with another soul, seeing those people in all their three dimensions, and good to tell this again.
Yeah, thank you. And we are able to extend the option to purchase a streaming link through the 24th. So if you've only seen it once, you haven't gotten to see it, you need to see this several times because it's dense and beautiful, and there's so much to be drawn from. I'm really struck by, we often say the theater is very ephemeral. This was ephemeral and extreme in some sense, and yet it was all the more poignant that it was truly this kind of examination of our brief time here and how we touch each other and what it means to be family, and how fleeting the joys and the sorrows can be, and yet how lasting the imprint and the love. And this was definitely a show made with love. Can you talk a little bit about just, this design was very simple and very beautiful, but it was also really intricate, and can you talk a little bit about the very thoughtful collaboration of the design team and how that worked with you all, including Steph Paul, who did the movement and helped create this in some total theater experience?
Sure. Is that me? You want me to talk about that?
Absolutely, sir. Please.
Okay. I think Steph Paul is watching this on Facebook. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Steph.
We miss you.
So is Roxy and Michael and Liam and Julia. What up, y'all?
Yeah, the whole team.
It's like they're the only ones watching, but here we are. It's like all hanging out together. I like it. There's so many where to begin. I mean, I think, again, one of the things that I think was really truly was real from the beginning was that it wasn't just me in conversation with the designers. Like Sean and Abigail were part of the conversation, especially with Matt Hubbs from a very early moment. Robert, we were in conversation with you and in the theater about what was going to be possible and how to make those restrictions actually feel like opportunities, right? Of what can that teach us about the kind of play we want to make? And I think it did. In fact, I think actually that a lot of one of the blessings of that space, right, is that the size constrains you to do something very, very pure. It has to be the thing and nothing else, or else it will become sort of a wash. And so, Meredith is obsessive. Meredith, our senior designer, is obsessive in all the best ways. So the conversations become is that oh, we love you too, Steph. Aw. The best person. I'm gonna talk about you in a second, without mentioning Sister Act 2, I think. And then there's Meredith. What was great about that conversation was that because there's so little, you get to be really specific on what is there. So the conversation about the color blue on that stage, does it go from this color blue to this? Is it going too quickly from light to dark? Is it moving? And so when you have this, I think it's a Peter Brook quote, but it might be a Beckett quote about when all you have is a chair, it better be the right chair. That is sort of, and these guys, remember in rehearsal, we were rehearsing with bright orange stools, and it wasn't right, and we sort of thought it might not be right. And I was texting Meredith, who was on a cruise ship of all places, being yo, I know we talked about it and it seemed cool. I think it's not quite right in here. She's well, let me come look at it. She walked in the room. She got to Louisville and she's that's not right. And then, but again, because the resources of the theater, then we changed the object and we were able to make it the kind of thing we want it to be. And I think that the same conversation was true, certainly from sound perspective. I know that Sean and Abigail were in there with Matt early in the process, probably a week before tech or 4 days before tech, starting to be what is it going to sound like, so that we can make those choices that enable it to sound intimate and also bigger than it is. There's only 4 people on that stage. And yeah, I think a lot of it was sort of it was once we had arrived as a team, Sarah, Jeff, Sean, Abigail, and myself, at sort of the container for the piece, what we sort of wanted it to feel like, this sort of um, like pure storytelling folk concert, this place where these men could come and tell their stories. It just became about trying to find the right vehicle to deliver those things. And Steph Paul, who you mentioned and who is watching this, we love you, Steph Paul, came to us through Actors Theater. We saw her beautiful work on how to defend yourself last year. And Steph's father, or both your parents, Steph? Just type it in the chat. But definitely Steph's father, but both of Steph's parents are Haitian, and her father is a music producer. And so she would do things like send us videos of her dad dancing and be like, what do we think about this for this kind of moment? And Jeff would be like, yes. And it was that kind of collaboration in terms of populating the world with all the right people to make this happen. I don't even remember your question. I just got happy thinking about all these people.
It's glorious. It was glorious. I know we're winding down, but I wanted to just kind of ask, just like, what was your favorite song? There are so many, I jot down lines from the play that just keep resonating for me. And there's one section where Jonah talks about being known and being seen, and how some of these things really resonate about just these kind of universal things about we want nothing more from our loved ones than to hear that we're enough. And as nice as it is to be told you're special and you're beautiful, but like the last one is just that you're just enough. What are some of the lines or speeches for you in the play that really resonate at this really complicated time in American history, where we are at a place that I think very few of us ever imagined we would be? We thought we had a certain kind of privilege and a privileged existence, that we would not see some of the things that we've seen over the last few weeks. But this play has such wisdom, and the characters have such wisdom to tell us about what's important and valued in life. What would you want people to be left with? What speech really speaks to you at this moment, or what line really resonates for you, each of you?
I'm really going to start with a song that we call The Bop. It's when they're dancing. There's something, honestly, right now for me, finding great moments of joy and to let my spirit run free is really, I think, important, and is keeping me kind of like mentally sane. And so The Bop is like a big kind of joyous moment, and sometimes I'm just in my kitchen dinner and dancing to that song.
Yeah, I was realizing, I think when I hug you there, Alan, I think that might be the last time that I like hugged someone who wasn't, my wife or my baby, And,
Yes, I know. The same for me, I think, actually.
Yes. And I can remember being in that moment and just like feeling the privilege of it. And also like, I was like, I hope I don't get Alan sick. But it was so beautiful getting to do that with you every night, Alan. It was just such a joy. I don't think I'm trying to think of the specific line to sum it up, but I do just think this thing that's so beautiful in this play that's really been important for me through this time too is the moment at the end when when Jonah is realizing what be good meant, when he's hearing his father's voice and realizing that actually that was the devotion and the love. I think there's something in that of these two characters separated by so much space and so much time. But even so, with all that distance, being stuck together by that cord, and in the space, feeling the love. I do think like right now, as we're so far away from all of our people. I don't know how to sum it up, but I've just been thinking about it so much.
I think about I mean, I don't know. This is a more somber thought at this moment. And there's so much in the play that resonates very deeply with me. But I've been thinking about the moment early in the play when Jean is describing leaving Haiti suddenly, and how quickly it happened, and the meal he had with his mom, and that he wishes that they had said all the things that were in their heart, but neither of them knew that he would never see her again. It was the last time he would ever see his mother. And then again at the end of the play, when he's looking at Jonah's Instagram feed and just thinking about how proud he is of his son and how much he loves him. And, after so many years of not speaking, that he's ready to tell him all of the things he hasn't said. And he says, when I see him again, I'll tell him. And we know that they're never going to see each other again. And in the way that you staged the play too, which I think is harder to appreciate on the video, but there's a kind of geometry of misses built into how the two men interact on stage, actually, for a lot of the production. And I've been thinking about that a lot. Just like, don't wait to say the thing that's in your heart, because the world can change so radically, so quickly, and the time that we have with the people that we love is so precious. And I feel very inside that knowledge right now.
Favorite line. I'm going to give you 3. And two are things that make me laugh, and one might be just like the sappiest thing in the world. The 2 that make me laugh every single time, maybe it's really funny, maybe it's just me, is Jean's line, "You're smarter and more clever than Instructor Claude. He cheated on all his university exams. I have proof. It's at my mom's house."
That's my favorite line.
It's Sarah's favorite line too. It made us laugh every time. A, it's how Nathan delivered it. B, it's like, why? What is the proof? Why did he put it in his mom's house? Like, I love it. And then another one is, but it's particularly good on the video, and I'll never forget Jeff's reaction when I watched the video with Jeff. His reaction is when Jonah says, "We're in a large suite. Adedeo has money. Not that I'm looking for a man who could take care of me, just a man who could." Long pause, if needed. Is like maybe my new favorite. Like, I'm gonna get a T-shirt of that. And actually, then my sort of always favorite sappy's not the right, but my always favorite sort of like gets me line is in that same speech when he's talking about Adedeo, and he says, "I high jump into bed, and he pulls me close and holds me like I'm rare."
That's beautiful. Nathan?
I think my favorite right now is the moment when I get to talk about the American dream and the scam of the American dream. I've been doing a lot of that just on my own these days, so it's nice to remember it.
Yes, and I think for me, it's when I say about Jonah that he stopped letting me know him. And then afterwards, Jean says, "I got glimpses of him when he was a teenager, but I'd kill it." How it was staged, by the time I said that line, from first dress on, I was looking house right at a group of people working, young people from Actors Studio of Louisville working. And when I said that line, so many people who work in theater who were watching me say that line understood exactly what I was saying. And I understood why I was saying it. And I was so thankful that even though we've all can relate and we can say we've gone through that, I was so thankful that what was inside of me had not been killed, so that I could be at that on stage right now, saying that to these people who are coming after me. So for me, that, and then when I saw it in the video, and I had to look handsome when I was saying it too. So I was like, thank you, Robert. Thank you, Josh Brody. Thank you, Jeff Augustine. So yeah, I'm sad. Sorry.
This was extraordinary. Our time is coming to a close. I love the moment in the play that keeps repeating about the way that Jean would say Natalie's name, would say the mother's name, and the longing for someone to say one's name. And I just think of adoration, and each and every one of you are worthy of such adoration for the extraordinary gift that you gave our audiences, for the short time that we were able to do it in public assembly, and that you're giving to so many across the nation and the world with getting to share this digital stream of this just stunning play. And I thank each and every one of you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Josh. And thank you, Sarah. And thank all of you who've listened in for sharing in this really special story. Stay close, keep loving, and thank you. We'll miss you, and we'll see you in the theater soon.
Robert.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having us. It's so good to see all you guys. We're all back together.
Yes.
Yes.
That's weird. We did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
Well, oh God, that was amazing.
Oh
Thank
God.
you.
Thank you.
I
all
love you so
Oh,
much.
I love you
Love
guys.
you all so
love
much.
you.
Love and miss you. Can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, I love you guys. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.